You were told that being the good girl would protect you, that you being dependable, always there, always happy, always willing to be a helping hand would keep you safe. Now, the girls who were selfish, who were difficult, who were stubborn, now, those weren't the good girls. And if anything happened to them, it was their fault because they chose not to play by the rules. You've been getting those sorts of stories and instructions since you were a little girl. And I want to ask you a question. How is the Good Girl Act helping you today? The Good Girl Act, when I talk to professional women, when I talk to women from all facets of life, they're exhausted on a level that no nap could ever quench. They are resentful to a point that no type of vacation, no sort of meditation would ever be able to touch a hem of that level of resentment. Now, this is not something to be angry about, but I want to call out that the Good Girl design, this training, you have done it excellently. You are superior at it. But the core of it is that this training, this programming, was never designed for you to be successful. And therefore, you will never be able to thrive while under. Hello, and welcome back to Mystique Femininity. I'm your host, Christian Simone. In today's podcast episode, we're going to go into something that is super important as you, as a woman, evolve. You have to move away from being the good girl. The good girl is often seen as someone that will help you protect you. And being seen in this way, it's supposed to bring being the standard of being a woman. But the good girl eventually grows up to be the good woman. And I have to say that the Good Girl Act, the Good Woman Act, is extremely dangerous. And it is costing you a lot in your life and that you don't even know it. So, the first thing I want to get into are some ways that you can tell if you're operating under the good girl mentality. So, some ways that you can tell if you're operating under the good girl mentality. One, you often say yes when you mean no. And when you do say no, you feel an overwhelm with guilt. You feel like a horrible person because you enforced a boundary. You think that you're actually going into your Disney villain era because you said no. Number two, you tend to manage everyone else's emotions in the room that don't have anything to do with you. You're always trying to tend to make sure everybody's comfortable, happy, people are comfortable with your existence, all of those things that are excessively inefficient, but extremely costly to your life. Number three, you're the one that holds everything together. So if there was a girls' trip, a family gathering, you're the one who is putting it all together. And deep down, you believe that if you weren't to do it, if you weren't to continue, that it would never get done. And that upsets you. You haven't thought about yourself. When people ask you, how are you doing? Or how can I help you? How can I support you? You look at them perplexed because that's a question that you haven't even asked yourself in years. Because the thought of what you need is never, ever on the top of your mind. And then the last one would be that when you rest, if you rest at all, you feel very uncomfortable with it because it feels as though it's something that has not been earned. It's not something that you have done enough to have and to receive comfortably. Now, if you heard yourself in more than two of these, I don't want you to feel bad about yourself. I don't want you to feel as though you have some sort of deficiency. If anything, you have actually proven that you are brilliant and that you are extremely strategic. You just now need to be able to take that strategy and apply it to a way in your life that actually benefits you. This is not a discipline problem. This isn't a motivation issue. This is just how insidious the programming and training of being what is the good girl has to be and what it's been. This training and programming has been done since you were a little girl. So, this just shows how effective that is. But it also lets you know that you have the capabilities, the mechanism, if you will, to be able to make the life that you really, truly want. It is eye opening when you begin to unpack how you operate and how that if your life was truly designed by you, how wonderful, how rich, how pleasurable, how tasteful it would be. Now, I'm very well known for saying the quiet part out loud. And there's something I want to say today that is extremely important and really is not said out loud. The strategy, the training that you received from your grandmother, your mother, whomever, whatever matriarch in your family that taught you how to be this way, this was a strategy of survival. And I want you to think of how much substance that can be. Now, yes, there are mothers who have been phenomenally cruel and harmful. But for a lot of other mothers out there, grandmothers that taught you how to be the good girl, she did that out of strategicness in order to try to keep you protected. And we must honor that part because it is very easy to be resentful in what we were taught. But we must appreciate everything in order for us to release it and move forward. Being the good Black woman, the good church woman, the good Latina mother, the selfless servant, all of these may be perceived in our day and age as a character flaw, but this was actually survival, adaptation, and strategy at its finest. Our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts, our matriarchs of community, they understood that in order for you to survive in this world, one had to perform goodness in order to be okay. She understood that a world in which hates all that is woman, and she may not have known it on a more conscious level, but she knew it subconsciously that in a world that hates women, that hates all that is woman, and how being a woman is one of the most fearful things that people experience. She understood that to survive, she had to have an armor, and that armor was in her good works. That was being selfless. That was being kind. That was being generous. That was doing certain behaviors that she may not have wanted to do, but she did them in order to be here. And we have to honor those things and understand and see that the survival strategy that came with armor that you inherited, and you are still wearing that inherited armor for a war that was not yours to continue working within. That war is not yours to fight in, but we have to acknowledge the valor and the courageousness and brilliance that is woman. Now, I want to get into the mechanisms and how dangerous and costly it is being the good girl. And I'm going to be pulling up my notes for this one. The first mechanism is going to be the approval economy. So, in our world, and especially operating as a woman, getting the approval of your family, your friend group, your church, your community, whomever you're dealing with, school, whatever, being approved by them makes you feel safe. And on a nervous system level, this means you will often portray yourself in whatever way necessary in order to receive that said approval. Because then your nervous system understands if I'm manageable, I'm safe, I'm protected. This is a very, very much plays into our collective's people pleasing condition at this time. We are all trying to feel safe, and we do and we put on various costumes to do so. Number two is this circular trap. So the more you give, the more you're needed, the more that you are unable to pull away, the more that you are seen and visible. And this makes you often feel good. I know that in a time in my life, I really, truly was energetically malnourished because the only nourishment I received is if I did something. So if I did something for people, then people liked me. But if I chose myself, if I chose to do things that would be beneficial to me, solely beneficial to me, then it was perceived negatively. And that negativeness also made me feel very vulnerable because then it feeds into the final mechanism, which is this community enforcement. So, women in your community may enforce, try to push upon you to remain in that good girl behavior. Because, for one reason, on a more conscious level, by you behaving the way you are, that keeps them affirmed in their behavior. But on an unconscious level, women who are operating in this community enforcement, it means that if you step out of your good girl act, they may as well, and then that places them in a hyper vulnerable state. It threatens everything that they feel that they've justified in their lives. And so this can make it difficult. And if you are a part of a deep community, it can feel as though you are throwing a gasket in front of everything that you have and that you love so that you can actually live in the way that is more natural for you. And this is, I think, one of the harder parts because often we are very much built to be in community. And so with that, we often feel that we have to do whatever we can to stay in that community, to be connected. And so the potentiality of not having access to that makes us scared and it makes us retreat into suppression and continuing to perform the good girl, even when it is beyond expired. Now, I want to get into some areas that you can start to actually look at the cost of the good girl act and how dangerous this is into your life. So, from a physical aspect, you might be dealing with a lot of chronic inflammation, a lot of autoimmune flares. You're always exhausted. 8 hours of sleep is not doing anything for you. It's almost like it was 8 seconds. And your body has been sending you all these signs for years. It's like it's sending you invoices of how sleep deprived you are and how much you performing is costing you. And for a lot of the physical, we, especially if you are a woman that's of color, any sort of color, any intersectionality, you have been trained really well, and particularly to override what you feel. So you override pain, you override exhaustion. We wear exhaustion as a badge of honor. And so you may be so disconnected from what you feel that you can't even see it until it's brought up to you. Now, on a relationship piece, you may tend to gravitate towards or attract people who need to be held, people who need to be helped. So you hold them until you get to a point that you resent helping and supporting because there isn't reciprocity. And then you go into a cycle of feeling bad for having had resentment. And so you hold and help more until you're in this vicious cycle that is leaving you disgusted, yet feeling hopeless and powerless over your life. Now, for your identity, I want you to ask yourself right now, outside of what you do for others, who are you? I really want you to sit with that. Outside of all the things that you do for everybody, your mama, your daddy, your brother, your sister, your cousin up the street, your church family, your other communities that you're a part of, the school, like work, all of those things, your friends. Who are you outside of the things that you do? And if you have hesitation, if it feels like you can't answer that, that is a really great indicator that you have truly been well deep into the deep of being the good girl. If this question also provides or produces a lot of silence, that silence is a huge cost. The next thing I want to touch on in this area of cost is your dreams. You've probably have told yourself that when your kids are older, when work slows down, when things are more stable, you'll do what you want to do for you. But how long have you been saying that? Like let's be real with each other. How long have you been keeping up that sort of thought process? I know it's more than a few weeks. I know it's been more than a few months. It's probably looking at some years, my darling, probably a few decades. How many more years are you going to authorize spending in the waiting room of your own life? How much are you going to continue to spend in the waiting room of your own life by playing the good girl? I will say these questions may feel jarring. They may feel activating, but it is done because it's time for you to begin to live in the most aligned, authentic path. Living in the good girl act is very dangerous because you did not come into this world, you did not incarnate into this world to just be a helper. Now, I want you to understand if you take away nothing from this episode, the women who trained you to be the good girl, they're not an enemy. You who keep operating under the good girl mentality, you are not your own enemy. The enemy is the systematic structures that are in place that even made the need for you to operate this way. If we're going to blame something, that would be the core essential. You have had plenty of energy that you have churned through over the years that has just been misguided. It has been taken from the inside out and it has been directed to everybody but the woman who needed it, which is you. And so to me, this should be very comforting to know that you have the ability to redirect, reroute, realign your life to be what you wanted by being able to reroute that energy that you were pushing outward onto everyone else and bring it back into self. And when you bring it back into self, it may feel uncomfortable. It may feel as though you're being selfish. But I want you to take the time in doing that practice, because when you do, you will begin to regenerate and restore yourself. And when you are restored, then you will eventually get to a point of where you have an abundance of overflow. And then you can allow your overflow to spill out into the world. And you're not going to miss a beat because you're full. You have everything that you need. You are great. And then that way, you're not giving from a act. You are truly giving from a true, deep, abundant, wealthy woman. Now, this may upset you, and I'm very okay with it. I love doing that. I think one of the biggest fears of all is having to face the woman that is underneath the facade of the good girl act. Because we may not know her, we may not recognize her, we may feel as though we are not able to connect with her. And it becomes very hard when the good girl act becomes your self concept, it becomes your story. If you weren't able to earlier when I asked the question, who are you outside of doing things for others? If you were not able to respond to that with actual, tangible who you are, that just lets you know how deep in the sauce you are with that, and that the Good Girl Act has not become just an act, but it actually has become your identity. It is who you are. It is your reflection. And so to strip yourself of that would mean not knowing who the hell you are. And that can be scary. That can feel uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, you have the power, the magic, the whatever you feel that you need to be able to pivot your life in a way that actually suits you well, that is actually designed by you and your interest. The moment that I released the need to be a help to anyone, I know it's really popular to say, I don't want to be useful to any man. That is very true. That is the gospel. But I've extended it to be beyond that, and it is to be useless to everyone unless it is what I am designed to do. That I have personally said, this is my mission, this is what I want to do, and how I want to be, how I want to stand and frolic in the world. When I began to operate that way, I noticed quite a few things. One of those things that I felt pretty quickly is that a lot of people left, and the leaving initially felt painful, but was also very, very refreshing, because now I am able to take the energy that I was giving away freely, but not freely, more compulsive. I was able to then finally take all that I had and put it into myself. And it also taught me how much abundance I had in energy, because there was a lot that I was doing. I also began to feel restored in being able to say that I am sovereign in how I design my life. My life does not look like what others' lives look like, and that is by design. And I can consistently pivot my life to be where I want it to be. And that is refreshing. Now, I wouldn't be me in giving this podcast without giving you some practical substance to sit with, because that is, we're not here just to talk. We're here for change and actual, like, walking it out. So, a few things that you can look at reorientation, not solutions, because you don't need solutions. You really just need to be able to reframe things in order for you to tap into your own divinity. One is going to be redefining goodness, because the good girl is always seen about being good. And what if being a woman meant, a good woman meant, that you took care of yourself first? Not that it's a luxury to take care of yourself first, but it is the standard. It is like the bare requirements. And this question should not stop you from being good, but it should help you to reroute how you view goodness and how you engage with it. The next thing would be your identity shift. The woman that you've been asked to become, the one who takes up space, the one who needs, the one who is not perpetually available, she already exists inside of you. And if you're able to then tap into that, because she's been there before you were trained, but she was suppressed, she was muted, she was deactivated based on the programming of the good girl indoctrination. Tapping into her will help you because you're not really trying to reinvent yourself. You really are just trying to reorient yourself to your true identity. Releasing the good girl identity and understanding that you do not need to be in armor that is not yours. That is going to be freeing. That is going to allow you to evolve. And this goes in kind of the third reorientation is a permission statement. You do not need to destroy your life. So I'm not telling you to destroy your friendships, cut your family off, cuss your mom out. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. That could pose death for you. I'm not telling you to cut off your church members or any of those things. But what I am telling you and encouraging you to do is that you need to become unavailable so that you can regain life. You need to become unavailable from your own self depletion that is happening by you performing the good girl act. It is a shift that can be subtle. You do not need to be difficult about it. It just needs to become what is. So at one point, you were the good girl and you did things automatically. You didn't try to posture, you just did them. This is the same thing. You will now flip and ensure that your own world is taken care of first. Like if you've been on any flight, they always let you know before we take off, put your own air mask on first before helping others. This is important. So, by you releasing the Good Girl Act, you putting on your own oxygen mask first, that allows everyone else to be able to really receive the joy and the nourishment that you can provide. Now, I told you at the beginning that this whole Good Girl Act, this scripting, this programming, this training was not created for you to thrive. It's the complete opposite. It's definitely here for you to be easily managed and to be managed by the systematic problems we have in our world, but also by the communities in order for them to survive. Women, if they were to stop doing everything that they do for others aside of themselves and their children, the world would catch a fire. The collective needs the labor of women, the unpaid labor of women, in order for it to survive. That is a patriarchy, capitalist run patriarchy. And the moment that you can eventually say that this isn't what you want, there isn't a therapy session that you need or a motivational affirmation. All you need to do is make a decision that from today going forward, you release what is no longer serving you, which is this good girl act, and you are embracing what you do need, which is to own your own divinity and be fully taken care of for yourself, redirecting your energy, even if it means that it feels uncomfortable, even if it feels that you're being selfish, um, and releasing the old, outdated, and extremely dangerous paradigms of goodness. Now, if this podcast turned anything inside of you, I would love for you to hear from you. Would love for you to put into the comments, no matter which modality you're listening to this. So if you're finding me on YouTube or Apple or Spotify, would love to hear your comments. Share this with another lady that you know this would resonate with. And I would say that the more that you embrace the true authenticity of who you are, the easier it becomes for you to release any identities that were never made for you to evolve and to thrive. And until next time, make sure you're living your best life.